Welcome to Aligned AF, real talk for evolving souls with Yahweh Kent. Join Yahweh for honest conversations on spiritual growth, the messiness of life, and how to move through it all at a higher frequency. So grab a cup of tea and let's sail in. This is Aligned AF, and here's Yahweh.
What happens when grief breaks your heart wide open and your soul starts asking deeper questions? In this tender and powerful episode, I sit down with Maddy Rivera to explore her journey after losing her adult son and how spirituality became a refuge and a revelation. Together, we talk about signs from beyond, the sacred mess of healing, and the deep soul work of navigating grief and grace side by side. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Aligned AF, real talk for the evolving soul. Today's episode is tender, it's sacred, and incredibly human. We're diving into a conversation that many of us will face at some point in our journey: grief. But not just grief in the human sense. We're talking about grief through the lens of the soul, through the lens of love, and how spirituality can become both a refuge and a beacon in our darkest hour. I'm honored to be joined today by Maddy Rivera, a beautiful soul, a mother, and a woman walking the path of healing after the unimaginable loss of her adult son. Maddy's story is one of heartbreak, yes, but it's also a story of connection beyond the veil, of resilience, and of how spirit has held her through the waves. Whether you've lost someone, are supporting someone in grief, or are simply exploring what it means to stay spiritually grounded through life's hardest moments, this conversation will meet you where you are. So take a breath, get comfy, and let's step into this space with open hearts. This episode is Grief and Spirituality with Maddy Rivera. Maddy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here today.
Well, it's my honor. This is a very important subject, and it takes a lot of bravery and a lot of vulnerability to be willing to speak to it. So thank you.
It does.
Maddy is a ordained minister. She's a writer and author. She is a soul searcher and an amazing human being. And I have only known Maddy for a short while. In fact, I've never met her in person. But I know her through another very incredible human being who I spent many years working side by side with. So Mark, thank you for getting us together. Who knew that it would lead to an amazing conversation like this? Maddy, could you take a few minutes and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a mother of two. My son Gianni is my angel, and I have a daughter, Karina. There's 6 years of age difference between the two. So for many, many years, Gianni was the star of the show. And then 6 years later, out comes Karina. I think he wanted a brother, but oh well. You get what you get, and you don't get upset.
No.
So I currently, yes, as you mentioned, I recently became an ordained minister. In the process now of getting a secondary certification through another ministry to be able to perform ceremonies for the LGBTQIA community. Currently, the ministry that I'm holding is for, apparently the school of thought is male-female marriage. So I want to make sure that I am serving everyone. It's very important to me. So I already have one certification, and now I'm going to be obtaining the second one. hopefully soon, and I hope to be performing weddings by the end of spring,
Wow.
God willing.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
I think maybe we'll get right down to it, Maddy, because this is an important conversation, and um, there's no easy way to kind of glide into it. And there's a lot that really needs to be covered. So why don't we get started? Um, to begin
Sure.
with, can you please tell us a little bit about your son and kind of what he meant to you, how he brought light to your life?
First, I have to say, I love you, Gianni. I love you. Gianni came to my life. He was gifted to me by the heavens. I was married for about 10 years at a very, very young age, and no children came of that union. So by the time I remarried, I was already 27 years old and ready to have a child.
Yeah.
And we tried for a little bit and nothing was happening. And then I prayed on it and finally found out that I was having a baby. So he was very, 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 very much anticipated. Happiest day of my life finding out that I was having a child. So Gianni, sometimes I speak of him in present terms because,
Okay. Yeah.
energy doesn't perish. Energy is all around us, and I know he's with me. So if I might go back and forth between he was, whatever comes is what comes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Gianni,
Just because they leave us in the physical body doesn't mean they ever leave us.
exactly, exactly. So Gianni was always a very, very loving soul. I feel like he was, as they say, an old soul. Funny. As a baby, he was very much a happy, happy baby. There was never a morning where I would, peek over his little crib and his eyes would be his huge eyes and rosy cheeks and just happy, happy, happy all the time. He was always a good baby. And as he got older, it became very apparent that he was a very giving person. He was a great friend. Everyone that knows him to be a very generous soul. First one to come out if your car gets stuck in the snow, or if you need a favor, or if a girl broke your heart and you needed somebody to to vent to. He's just an amazing human, and I will be eternally grateful for having been given the privilege of being his mother.
Sounds
Funny.
like, I'm sorry,
Very, very funny.
funny.
Great sense of humor. Yeah.
That might be genetic, because we've had a
Thank
few
you.
conversations. He sounds like a very, very special individual. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and so many directions to go in. I guess my first question for you is, if you're willing to talk about it, um, how did you lose him? How did he make his transition?
So the most difficult, may I? One moment.
Please.
I think the most challenging part of when this happened was because it was at the beginning of the pandemic.
Oh.
The world was shut down,
Yeah,
pretty much.
yeah,
And, he turned 20 years old on April the 23rd of 2020 and transitioned 2 weeks later, 14 days later. So at the beginning of the pandemic, my organization furloughed everyone. We were home. My spouse at the time, his company stayed open. So I was home with my 2 children, with Gianni, who had already graduated from high school, and my daughter. And, it was very difficult for me to keep him at home because as a, freshly turned 20-year-old, he just wanted to hang out with his friends and, they don't take anything seriously. So every day was a battle of wills. Like, can you just stay home? But I understood, he wanted to hang out with friends and I would just urge him to be careful. So, um, the day that it was a car accident. So he left in the morning to hang out with one of his best friends and came back around lunchtime. And the four of us shared a meal together and laughed and joked. And then he said, "Okay, Mom, I'll be back later." I said, "Okay." And off he went. So several hours went by. It was a Thursday, Mother's Day week, actually. And he came back in the evening, and I was, at that time, because it was such a crazy time, all I did was watch the news all the time about the pandemic and everything that was happening. And so he was getting ready to go back out with his friends. And I wasn't really focused in on him leaving at that moment. I remember watching the news and him coming down the stairs behind me. And then I went into the kitchen, and we had a side door, and he was getting ready to leave. And I'm like, "Be careful. I'll see you later. And I love you." And he started to walk out the door. And at the very last second, he opened the door back up and said, "I love you, Mom." And off he went. So at that particular time, my ex-husband would go into work very, very early in the morning, around 4 in the morning. And we had gotten to the point where, because he was 20, it was difficult to kind of, pin him down or give him a curfew. And it was very late. I had gone to sleep. My daughter had gone to sleep. My ex-husband had gone to sleep. And then when he got up in the morning to go to work, which was like at 4 in the morning, he did not tell me that our son wasn't home. So I guess the presumption was that he had stayed over at a friend's house. I'm not quite sure what the assumption was, but so I had no idea. I thought he was home. And at about 6:30 in the morning or 7, I got a phone call on Messenger on Facebook. And it was one of his close friends. And he said, they all called me Ma. So he's like, "Ma, is Gianni home?" And I said, "Yeah, he should be in his room sleeping." And I went in his room, and he wasn't in his room. So immediately this very strange sensation came over me, and I can't remember quite the feeling. It was one of obviously worry, but another part of me, that part of you that wants to protect you from these things, said, "Well, he's probably stayed over at a friend's house." So I said, "Oh no, he's not here." And again, because he woke me up out of sleep, I wasn't even really sure what time it was or anything. I was kind of disoriented. And he said to me, "Well, I just heard of a car accident near your house. Call him." So by then, my daughter had woken up, and I called him and called him and called him, and he didn't answer the phone. Next thing you know, two of his friends came to my door, and they were like, "Have you heard anything? There was an accident." And I said, "Okay, well, can you guys please go find out if it was him or not? Because I'm trying to get a hold of him, and I can't get a hold of him." So they said, "Okay, we promise we'll be back." And I ended up calling my ex-husband. I said, "I'm trying to get a hold of Gianni. Someone told me that there was an accident, and you need to come home." And before he got there, the police came to the door. And there was 2 police officers, and my daughter was standing next to me, and they were like, "Do you have a son? Do you have a son named Giancarlo Morales?" And I'm like, "Yes." And they were like, "Well, we're sorry to tell you that your son was in an accident, and he didn't make it." And I'm like, "Are you sure it was him? Are you sure it's him? How do you know it's him? How do you know it's him?" He had a tattoo on his arm of my name, and he had another tattoo on his hand of a rose. And I said, "Well, did you check? Are you sure?" And they were like, "So, yeah." So I just felt like I left my body. It was this feeling of Denial, obviously. Just being frozen. I just couldn't process what was being said to me. My daughter was standing next to me, and all I could think of was that she's standing here listening to this at the same time I was. And when I looked out the front door, my ex-husband was coming across the grass, and when I saw him, I ran out to him and I just started screaming. And I said, in Spanish, I said, El nene. And he's like, Madeline, no, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. And we just both dropped to the ground and just lost it. It was horrendous. Yeah, so I'm sorry to say that he was drinking. And he was also under the influence of marijuana. And apparently speed played a factor.
Yeah.
So, and it was a street away from our home, the street that ran parallel.
So sorry for that loss. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine
Thank you.
what you went through. You must have felt like this wasn't even reality for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine. So let me ask you, and without getting into every single detail of day to day to day to day to day,
Mm-hmm.
was there anything in the early days after he transitioned that you felt any kind of support, whether it's from people, from family, from God, from the church, anything that you felt was the one and only thing you could hold on to, maybe at this point?
Well, it's funny. My ex-husband was very Catholic.
Uh-huh.
And in the Catholic faith, they have 9 days of prayer to help the soul transition.
Okay.
And, at that particular time, I guess you could say I was raised Catholic, but I kind of strayed and found my own belief system.
Yep.
But I wanted to honor his beliefs and his family, so we agreed to do that. I don't feel that I really felt any comfort from that process.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that my biggest support came from one of my friends who was there for me every single day.
Yeah.
She would come every single day. We were going to we had a vigil for him, and we did several things right in the early days, and she was there for me every day. So she was my saving grace. At the time, my ex-husband and I, we weren't on good terms anyway. So we really didn't grieve together, I would say. Most of the time I was with my daughter. And what got me a little bit of comfort, because again, the world was shut down. There was no counseling, there was no services to be found ever anywhere.
Yeah.
So I, out in desperation, I went on Facebook. And there I found a group of parents who had lost, I think the name of the group was Parents Who Have Lost a Young Adult Child.
Okay.
I met two women that had very, very, very similar stories to mine. And that was what saved me. I think just talking to people that knew what I was going through.
Yeah.
Because I'm sad to say that, my family, my mother in particular, she's not a person that deals well with things like this. And she just could not deal. She couldn't deal. So she stayed away the first couple of days. And so, yeah, it was just me and my daughter, and their father was there, and that was it. We kind of shut down, and we had people coming to the house, and, the house was full of people for that first week. I remember at one point, I believe it was, so he transitioned on a Thursday. We had people in the house every single day. And I remember on Sunday, my nephew, by marriage, said, Titi, happy Mother's Day. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, today's Mother's Day. And I was like, oh my God. I had conversations with people. I don't even remember what was said.
Yeah.
I was just sleepwalking.
Yeah. Plus, you still had to be a mother to your daughter.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess just social media, an unexpected source, but
Yeah.
that's all there was at the time.
Well, despite some of the bad press that social media can get, there are some amazing groups out there that really
Absolutely.
can help people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad you were able to find a couple of those groups and find some people to help you through that.
Yeah, me too.
So have you had any moments where you have felt a true, like, soul to soul communication with him?
I've had several. So just a disclaimer. I feel like anytime you experience a loss, particularly that of a child, for me anyway, I know that I've always been a seeker of spirituality. I've always been one to deep dive into anything that interests me.
Yeah.
So I became I've even now into near-death experience stories. I did contact a medium in the early days and was not satisfied with what I was told.
Yeah.
But I feel that for sure I felt him standing right behind me. The next day, I believe it was the second or the third day after he transitioned, I felt him standing right behind me. I talked to him all the time. I have felt someone sitting down next to me on the bed. I felt someone pull my covers one day. I'm going to say him because I know it was him. I used to feel him standing in the doorway watching me cook dinner at my old place. And I see orbs. The orbs are just, they're just crazy.
Yeah.
I have them on tape. But I feel that I do believe that some experiences are not dreams, but they are visitations. And I feel like I've had at least 2 visitations. And then other times they were very vivid dreams.
Yeah.
So yes, I do feel that, but that's something that I'm working on fervently and feverishly to learn ways to communicate with him. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Because
an
then
ongoing mission.
you truly understand that we don't really completely lose anybody.
Exactly.
That energy is always going to be a part of us.
Right.
Well, um, did what you've had to go through, the grief that you've had to experience in this, did that affect your connection with your spiritual side at all? Did it disconnect you for a while, or did it kind of reinforce it and turn it up a little bit?
You know something, I think the biggest test of faith that you can face is losing a child. If that doesn't show you if you believe or not, I don't know what does.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this. This is not the natural order of events.
No.
So I've always wanted children. I've always longed to be a mother. Anyone that knows me, even now, I introduce people to Gianni all the time. I have to talk about him. It's the only thing that keeps me going. And so I feel that, can you repeat the question? I'm going off on a
Um,
tangent.
had had you at any point felt that your grief changed your connection with God or spirit?
Okay, yes. So yes, at the beginning, I was furious. I was railing against God.
Yeah.
How could you do this to me? I know so many people that are shitty parents. Pardon my French. Can I
It's
curse?
okay. It's all right.
You know, I see people around me all the time that just treated their kids like shit,
Yeah.
or just were absent parents, or just not good parents. And, you know, Gianni's friends and my daughter's friends have always said, "Oh, you guys are so lucky you have such a good relationship with your mother." So for for this to happen to me, I felt like it was the biggest slap in the face. And so it challenged my belief for sure.
Yeah.
But it was definitely tested. My faith was tested over time. You know, the other thing for me was that some of the people that I connected with through the Facebook group are more Christian, Christian like in their practices and things than I think it would appear that way. So when they would say, "Oh, it's God's will. He needed him more than me, and I have to accept my reality, and you know, it's God's will." I'm like, "Are you effing kidding me? Like, how could it possibly be God's will to take my child?
No. Yeah.
There's no way." So I was very, very, very angry. But over time, I just had to search within myself, and you can't question these things. And then I started learning about soul contracts and soul ties, and that souls choose their family and their parents before they come here and incarnate into a human body. So as I deep dived into all of these areas of soul ties and soul families and soul contracts and near death experiences and communicating with through the veil, I started to regain my faith
Yeah.
because I understood that, as we mentioned earlier, energy does not die. This here is just a hotel for your soul,
Yep.
and you don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're having fun. You're doing all the things, right? Because I believe that you can travel interdimensionally,
Sure.
or that you can be in many places at one time. And so, of course, he's around, and he comes when I need him. Whenever I ask him for a sign, when I'm in really deep in my grief, he shows up for me.
Yeah. 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 I love the idea of believing that there's no such thing as time and space at that point. You are returned to that that thought that is all things at all times in all places,
Exactly.
um, and you're not tethered to Earth in a
Right.
in a conveyance like this.
Mm-hmm. I just picture him as a beam of light, just
Yeah.
going everywhere and everywhere, everywhere, anywhere and everywhere he wants to go.
So would you say that when you got past the anger, and I'm sure you went through the stages of death, and
I would love to talk about the stages.
yeah, yeah, I think that that's a whole episode in itself.
Yeah.
But once you got past the anger and the bargaining and got a little closer to acceptance, would you say that spirituality kind of became a lifeline for you at that point? Or
Absolutely.
yeah,
I could not, if I did not believe that I will see him again, and if it wasn't because I have another child that needs me, I would have gone with him the same day.
yeah,
I would have chosen to go with him. So if I didn't have spirituality and I didn't believe, I wouldn't be able to survive this.
yeah. So now this was coming up on 5 years ago.
Yes.
Okay.
April 23rd, he would be turning 25.
Okay.
May 7th will be 5 years.
Okay. So what does your healing journey look like today?
Well, right now, My biggest mission in life is love. Even in my grief fuels my love. And I try to live my life. I chose joy.
Yeah.
And I try to walk in gratitude every single day. You know, I was given two amazing souls to love and protect, and I've done that, and I'm still doing that. But what does healing look like today? Healing for me is this, having conversations with people. It's, you know, meditation. It's learning how to connect. It's finally having this huge epiphany that, yeah, really, he's around. He's around. He's
Yeah.
doing his thing. But, you know, he's not tethered, as you said, to this human body. He's free of all this craziness that's happening in the world right now.
Yeah. 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 I'm a firm
um,
believer that the universe does not allow anything to stop existing. Okay. The
right.
universe just changes the energy. So, like, you look at, like, a tree may live 200 years,
Mm-hmm.
and when it dies, people say, oh, the tree's gone. But really, what the tree has done is it's transitioned into carbon, it's transitioned into
Of
soil, it's
course.
transitioned into
It's
all
alchemy.
kinds, yeah, all kinds of different things. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe that we do the exact same thing,
I do too.
where, where our souls may be done with these bodies, and the bodies go back to breaking down and becoming a part of something else.
Mm-hmm.
But our energy, our the part that makes us who we really are, because we are not these bodies. We are not, you're not Maddie. I'm not Yahweh. We are something way beyond all that,
Exactly.
going back to the original idea,
Right.
you know? And it's a transition onto a new experience.
Mm-hmm.
And we can choose to come back. We can choose to move on. We can choose to be on a different planet. We
Exactly.
can, choose to be a dog,
Exactly.
you know?
Right.
It's
I
just a
agree.
transition of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, are there any practices or rituals that help you stay connected to your son? I mean, I know you
Um,
said you talk to him all the time.
yes, I talked to him. I wrote some stuff down. If I can look at my notes for a second.
That's okay. I'm doing the same thing.
Okay. Um, let's see. So what I like to do sometimes is, well, anytime there's a holiday, I always have his photo at the table. Even if we go out to dinner for my birthday or for my daughter's birthday, we always take his photo and put it on the table.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I do. You know, cook his favorite meals. We listen to one of his favorite artists. Wear red on certain milestone days. That's his favorite color.
Okay.
But the biggest thing, I don't know if this ties into a different question, but you know, triggers. This word that everyone uses nowadays, triggers. You know, it's undeniable. It's like a
Yeah.
minefield every day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even where I work, he attended there as a child. He worked there when at the same time I worked there. He used to come play basketball there.
Yeah.
So he's everywhere.
Everything
I'll see
reminds you of him.
someone, yeah, I
Yeah.
see, you know, slender built young men with dark mop of hair and think it's him, knowing it's not. But what I've decided to do is, you know, there are many places that we would go as a family or just me and him or whomever, but that we have gone to that after I bisected my life before Gianni and after Gianni. So if there are places that I went to before when he was still here in the flesh, um, initially those places, I did not want any parts of those places. Like,
Yeah.
I can't go there. I can't go to that shoe store. You know, we played hooky one day and we went and bought some shoes there, and I just can't do it.
Yeah.
So what I decided to do was to reclaim those places
Yeah.
and not erase those memories, because those are moments that I lived with my child
Yeah.
and loved him. But to go back to those places and make new memories, happy memories, so
Yeah.
that there's not always a negative connotation.
Yeah. So many times we avoid places or situations because the story we tell ourselves is there's going to be so much pain associated with that that we don't want to be a part of it. And
Exactly.
sometimes, what we most of the time don't realize, but hopefully later work our way up to, is that once you face that pain and work your way through that pain, there are moments of joy. There are moments of pure love and memories that no one can take away from you.
Hmm.
And I think it's fantastic that you not only have been able to work your way through that, but that you are touching on that subject now, because I think that will help some of our listeners who are going through a similar situation where they're already, avoiding certain spots or not listening to certain songs or not watching certain TV shows that
Right.
their loved one watched all the time because it hurts so much that they're not here.
Absolutely.
Where what you should be doing, and I don't even want to say should be doing because it's not my place to tell anybody what they should be doing.
We
But what
you might
could
consider.
help you
Right.
is experiencing those moments and remembering how wonderful it was
Right.
to be with your child watching this show or to take him to buy some new kicks,
Hmm.
you know?
Exactly.
And I think it's great that you bring that up because if there's one little thing maybe from our conversation which may help somebody else, this show is all worth it.
Yeah. It's
You
funny
know?
you mentioned that, because I have a friend who um lost her sister um several years ago, and we were having a conversation the other day, and she said, I got in my car and my sister's song was playing and I just lost it. So I said to her, I have this big thing about reframing things, giving it a new spin, or like looking at it in a different way.
Yeah.
And I said, I understand that firsthand, because there are still like I still to this day I cannot listen to songs about loss.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I haven't conquered. I hear the first bar and I'm like, nah, I can't do it. I just can't do it. But so I said to her, why don't you try to reframe that? And instead of, it making you cry when you hear the song, just think of it as her saying hello.
Yeah.
And she's like, you know what? I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
So,
Think about it, about the joy that was on your loved one's face when they were just letting loose and singing this song,
right. Exactly.
or they were dancing around the living room and making you laugh.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they want us to remember.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. In fact,
don't be
there was,
afraid.
I'm sorry.
Don't be afraid to think of me. Celebrate thinking of me.
Yep. There was an artist that Gianni, that's my son's name, Gianni, loved this artist, and he wanted to go to one of his concerts with a friend of his, and they would talk about it all the time. And he transitioned before he could attend the concert. So about maybe 2 years ago now, my daughter and I found out the artist was coming to town to one of the colleges. So I sent a message to his friend that wanted to go with him back then, and I was like, do you want to go to the concert? The artist's name is A Boogie. And she's like, yes. I said, we have to do this for Gianni. We have to, because he wanted to go.
Yeah.
So we went. We had a blast.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. When you mentioned earlier about like listening to his music and stuff like that, did you enjoy his music when he was here?
I did. You know
Oh,
something?
I expected the opposite. I listen to some of the stuff that my kids have listened to, and I'm like, I don't get it.
So here's the thing about me. I love everything. I really do. I love all kinds of music. There's music that if you heard it and then looked at me, you would be like, there's no way she likes that. Yeah, I do. So I'm pretty open to any kind of music, but the most beautiful memories were in his senior year. I would drive him down the street to the bus stop, and he would play all his rap music for me. And he would say, "Ma, listen to this, listen to this. He's deep. Listen to what he's saying." And I'm like, oh, snap. This is really good.
Yeah.
So he got me into a lot of his music. So yeah, we used to share music all the time. It was great.
That's great. What a wonderful memory.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Every morning. That was our routine.
Yeah. So what would you say would be the one or two big things that you learned about yourself through this whole process?
About myself? That I'm resilient.
Yeah.
That I'm resilient, and that, again, right? We mentioned that this can either prove that you have faith or that you don't. It's the same thing in this particular question, because I've learned that one of the harshest lessons, if I can say that, is that, or one of the most interesting lessons, is that the people that you think are going to be there for you are not. And the people that are completely unexpected are the ones that step up and help you. I don't know if I answered that right, because I feel like there was a good
that's a great answer. One of the things that I've noticed in life is that, we build our tribe, we build our support system, and then something happens and you find out that maybe you didn't have the right players in the right place.
The right cast of characters.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and I just wanted to mention this. We've talked a little bit about it. People don't know what to say.
They don't.
There's really nothing that you can say, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The standard, I'm sorry for your loss.
But one of the things that I just could not believe this person said to me, I hope they don't listen to this show.
It might be something for them to learn. So go ahead.
Okay. So when Gianni was a little boy, he played t-ball.
Okay.
Then he played baseball. So you get, just make friends with the baseball moms and maybe hang out with them and whatever. So there was I still call them the baseball moms. And even though it's been many, many years, we're still like Facebook friends and so on. So I'm watching their kids growing up. I'm watching their sons having babies. It's very challenging. But one of those baseball moms, as I said, he transitioned May 7th. July. She reached out because she had seen my post, and she, expressed her condolences and everything. But in July,
right,
she sends me this long and heartfelt message. And I appreciated it. In fact, I read it again in preparation for this show today. I think at the time my knee-jerk reaction was I was infuriated. Now I see that she didn't mean it that way, but one of the things she said at the end of the message was, he didn't pass in vain. You should channel your grief and maybe, start, I don't know. I said, please God, hold my tongue.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I'm like,
I think my first reaction would be who the fuck are you?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just trying to make it through the fucking day.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to put one foot in front of the other. Like, I'm barely treading water right now.
Yeah.
The last thing I'm thinking about is having a fucking movement.
Yeah.
About, so that my son is not forgotten, or that there is some sort of lesson to be learned here. I was just flabbergasted. And you want to know what happened? A few months later, one of her sons was killed.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, oh my God, I would not wish this on. I don't have enemies. I really do like love everybody. I have no hate in my heart for anyone. Strong dislikes for some people, but not hate. I can't. So I would never wish this on anyone. So when I found that out, I was heartbroken. But I'm like, that's why you have to be careful what you say. Because, you might think that you're saying the right words, but to me, like, I'd rather not say anything.
Yeah.
Because there's really not much you can say.
Yeah. And, and it's entirely possible that she thought what she was saying was helpful.
Yeah, of course. And there were things there for sure. I mean, there was a lot of words of comfort there, but
sometimes it's about timing, though.
yeah, and that was, and I mean, 5 seconds later. In my mind, it was 5 seconds later.
Yeah. If that same message had come 6 months later, it might have been a different reaction.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a tough one. You're right, because people we don't know what to say, and there's the people who have never experienced anything like that don't know what to say. Then you've also got the people that have experienced something like that and say too much.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the story's about them.
Yes.
Well,
it's some sort of competition.
The best thing you can do is sit down, shut the fuck up, and just be there for the person.
You have to teach one of the other things that I've learned throughout this is you have to create boundaries.
Yeah.
If you're not comfortable with a certain word, if you kind of have to teach people what it is that you need.
Yeah.
And not be shy about it.
Yeah.
And just come right out and say, listen, I just need you to sit with me here and let me ugly cry and hold my hand. Or I just need to talk about my son right now because it makes me feel better to talk about him.
Yep.
But yeah, you kind of have to tell people what you need from them.
Yeah, because they don't know. They don't know.
Yeah.
And quite often they stumble over themselves trying to help, trying to fix, when fixing is not what's needed.
Exactly.
Because honestly, you can't fix it.
No.
You can't. Unless you can bring him back, you can't fix it. So please just sit there and just be a shoulder for a little while.
Yeah. The tribe is very important.
It is.
That's when you learn.
Really is.
That's when you learn who the MVPs are.
Yep.
Because I have 2 people that I work with. One of them has recently left the job, but they are like my earth angels. Anytime I told them right at the beginning, there were going to be times that I'm going to just stand in your doorway and you're going to see on my face that I just need a hug right. And they would just bear hug me and I would weep on their shoulders, and they did that without hesitation, even though I'm sure they didn't know what to do, say, or do with themselves, but they comforted me.
They did exactly what they needed and what you needed.
Exactly. Yeah.
And those are the people that we want more of. It really is. So if you were sitting with someone who was going through this right now, that was very fresh to them, and you had an opportunity to sit with them and talk to them, what would you want them to know?
Good question. I would want them to know that grief is not linear. The 5 stages of grief are bullshit because it's not a formula and it doesn't happen in steps.
Right.
They can happen at any time, in any order. I would tell them to give themselves grace and to try to surround themselves with people that don't make them feel like shit about feeling their grief. And that they have to understand something that has been a terrible lesson to be learned through this. And that is that this society is not meant to give grace to people that have lost their loved ones.
Yeah.
we rush everyone. We don't want to look at it. It's like a train wreck. I don't want to look at that. So I'm going to pretend it didn't happen because it could be contagious. Maybe I'm next. So I'm just going to, placate this person and throw platitudes but there is no expiration date. You will be grieving for the rest of your life. It ebbs and it flows. And what I would tell that person is to do whatever it takes to take care of themselves. And to try to seek help, but be selective of who they have in their energy field. Because the last thing that you need is someone around you that's going to make you feel worse.
Yeah, yeah. And set your boundaries.
Yeah,
be very clear about your boundaries.
And I would also tell them that, it does get better. It's like a stone you carry. Some days the stone is heavier, some days it's lighter. And it's nothing. I will say this when people say, how did you get through it? I didn't get through anything. I'm still going through it, and I always will.
It's
but
still
that
the
person
same
needs
stone.
to know exactly. That person should know that it will get better. It will get better.
Yeah.
And you just have to do the work. This is not a passive. This is not I wrote something really, really deep.
Go ahead.
Let's see if I can find it. Surviving through grief is not a passive endeavor. You have to roll up your sleeves and put in the work. Cry when you need to. Don't bottle it in. If people can't handle it, they can look the other way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that.
Thank you.
Grief is not... the beginning of that again was?
Grief is not a passive endeavor.
Yeah.
Surviving through grief, rather.
Surviving through grief
is not a passive endeavor. You have to roll up your sleeves and put in the work.
Yeah. Yeah. So many people just say time will take care of it, and it doesn't.
No.
And if you don't put in the effort, and we can say that about anything, but grief in particular, if you don't put in the effort to dig your way, crawl your way, swim your way, climb your way out of it, then you're just going to sit in the bottom of it.
Exactly.
You're
doomed. Yeah. Frozen in time in that moment.
Yep. Yep. I love your I don't know if it's analogy or an analogy or a metaphor, but the idea of having a stone, and at first it's heavy and then it seems to get lighter, but it doesn't get lighter. You just get stronger.
Exactly.
And it's always going to be the same stone.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody, I call them the frozen people. If anybody tells you to let it go, let it go. Throw the stone at them and then pick it up and move on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Well, Maddy, there's so much more to this that we can continue to talk about, and I would really, love it if we were to dig a little deeper on some aspects of this and maybe take it in other directions. But I just want to compliment you on your vulnerability, because vulnerability is bravery in my book. And you've got the strength and the bravery to come on here and, we don't have any idea how many people are going to listen to this, but you're bearing it. You're putting it out there and saying, I've been through this horrible thing that no parent should experience. And here's part of the way I got through it. And I promise you that you can do it too. To be able to do that, I honestly don't know if I could. So I am, you are my hero at this point.
Thank you.
If you would like to take a couple minutes to share anything, please take a few minutes.
Okay. So much to say. I definitely, by no means want to give the impression that I'm, healed.
Yeah.
Right? There are days that I am in my bed weeping. There are days that I'm just taken down, so I don't want to give the impression that, it's all hunky-dory now, because it's not. and especially now, like soon, his birthday's coming next month.
Yeah.
Closely followed by obviously days that are notable, like milestone days or birthdays. His birthday's coming up on April 23rd, which is looming. So I always start to get knots in my stomach and start to angst over, like, what am I going to do for him? So I've tried to, instead of being, I mean, don't get me wrong, I am sad that day, obviously. Especially when I see all of his friends, having birthdays and having babies and everything. But I try to make his birthday a celebration, even if it's nothing more than just a cupcake or something, and just talk to him and tell him I love him. But then on the 7th of May, which is the day he transitioned, I've made a tradition of going to the beach. I love the ocean. But those are really, 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 really tough days. So there's still going to be days, even if you learn how to navigate this thing, it's a clusterfuck of epic proportions. And every day is going to be different. So there's that. As far as, I did want to give a couple of resources.
Yes.
So one of the groups that I know a lot of people, there seems to be a division between the secular and Christian. Yeah. Well, not so much secular, but spiritual versus Christian.
Yeah, you've got
with regards to
group of people that refer to themselves as spiritual but not religious.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But you can, it's your own recipe. It's whatever resonates within you.
Yeah.
Right? So I feel like this is going to be a little bit of a taboo for some people that might tune into this, but there's a really negative school of thought with regards to mediums, psychic mediums, or with communicating through the veil. Excuse me. So a lot of times, that can be a really sticking point when you're trying to navigate this thing, and you find people that are going through it, but they think it's a sin, or they think that, speaking with demons, or that,
right.
Whatever the case may be. But what I found was that there was a group that I stumbled on. Well, not stumbled, because you don't stumble on anything, right? We know this.
No.
Serendipity and divine intervention. As I started my deep dives into all of this, the soul and communicating and everything, I found that a lot of the groups that I would encounter focus more on the grief and not so much on the healing.
Yeah.
So I found this group called, I hope people write this down, it's called Helping Parents Heal.
Helping Parents Heal.
Mm-hmm. They have affiliate groups, Helping Siblings Heal, Helping Fathers Heal. The group was started by a woman. Her name is Elizabeth Boyzon. She and a gentleman named Mark Ireland started this organization. She lost one child days after she was born. And then when her son was in college, he was on a trip up a mountain or something, and he perished on the mountain. And she was on the phone with him, telling him she loved him when he transitioned. So she teamed up. She started a little support group. It's been several years now. And the little support group has now blossomed into an international. I mean, they have branches in Hong Kong, New Zealand. They have different languages. They have an annual conference every year in Arizona for grieving parents. So what they do is they focus more on the healing. They promote psychic mediums. They have gallery readings, open gallery readings, no charge. And they have a group of parents that are called caring listeners. And they call them shining light parents. These are parents that have dealt with grief and have lost children. and have now decided to help others when they are in need. So you can pick up the phone and contact these people. And then they also have uh yeah, an annual conference every year. So that was one of them, Helping Parents Heal.
It was called Helping Parents Heal. And do you know, are they like, do they have a Facebook group or do they have
Yes,
a website?
they have everything.
Okay.
They have a website, they have a Facebook group.
So I'm assuming it's just helpingparentsheal.com.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the other thing I wanted to mention was the only book I was gifted with several books in the early days. Once you lose a loved one, you get grief brain, which I didn't know at the time was a thing. I was always a very avid reader ever since I was a kid, and I found I could not read more than 2 sentences with anything penetrating my brain. So one book that was gifted to me is called It's Okay That You're Not Okay. Meeting Grief and Loss in a Culture That Doesn't Understand.
Yeah.
And boy, did that hit me in the solar plexus. I'm like, yeah, nobody understands that, it takes more than 5 seconds to get over this or try to get through this.
Yeah.
And this was written by a woman by the name of Megan Devine. She's a psychotherapist, and she witnessed her beloved drown many years ago. So she was already a psychotherapist, but through that process, she ended up, now she's like this amazing person. She's got website. She has written several books. She has a podcast. Megan Devine, that's her.
Okay.
And then I wanted to give my contact info.
That'd be great.
So I created this just for the viewers. And again, as you said at the beginning of the show, I did recently become ordained. So I have created an email specifically for the purpose of answering questions or whatever, anything, if you want to contact me. It is ministerofgratitude@gmail.com.
Okay. Minister of Gratitude.
Yes. Because like I said, I try to walk in gratitude every single day.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for everything, even the challenges, because we can't enjoy the beautiful things if we don't experience some so beautiful things.
Maddy, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a powerful subject. And there are so many people out there that just don't have the support that they need and most likely feel like they'll never get it.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you possibly get through something like this?
Right.
And you are living, breathing proof that it doesn't end, but you do survive. And you do actually come to a space where you don't have to spend every waking moment crying in your pillow. You can celebrate the life that was and create new memories.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's incredibly impactful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
I thank you just because, anytime that I have an opportunity to speak of my son is me showing him I love him and that I will honor him and speak of him every single day until I join him again.
As well you should. And I guarantee you that he is very proud of his mother right now.
Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. To those of you out there that took the time to spend an hour with us, thank you for that. Please, 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 if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to leave comments, concerns, questions. If you have anything specific you want to discuss, ministerofgratitude@gmail.com to speak directly with Maddy. And you can reach out to me at alignedafpodcast@gmail.com. And I promise you, I can't speak for Maddy, but I'm pretty sure she feels the same way I do, that I promise you, if you reach out, somebody will respond. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And Maddy, I look forward to having another conversation with you sometime soon.
Absolutely. I have many things to talk about.
I'm sure you will.
And signs and synchronicities.
Yes, I actually have that listed on my possible podcast episodes. So
Excellent.
that will be something that I will reach out to you about.
Okay, great.
All right. So thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you for
I
having
think
me.
I think it's been a fantastic episode, and I think you're gonna help some people with this. So
I hope so.
yeah,
That's the goal.
yeah. So in the meantime, everyone, please thank you for showing up, and please tune in again to Aligned AF. Remember that even when it's messy or difficult, you're still getting closer to Aligned AF every single day. Well, thanks for hanging out with me today. If this episode spoke to you at all, share it with a friend or someone who needs it. You can also leave a review or connect with me online. You can find Aligned AF on YouTube, Facebook, your favorite podcast channel, or at alignedaf.org. And if you want to reach out directly, you can email me at alignedafpodcast@gmail.com. So until next time, stay aligned AF.